Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Just a little bit early, so just making sure everything is streaming through properly. The training lasts approximately an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes. We do record the training, so if you're not able to stay for the whole time, that's fine. You can come back later. They're always in our videos section. You can also share the link with other staff members who may need the training. Feel free to make use of YouTube's chat feature to ask questions about a feature as I'm going over it. I'll try to address the questions as soon as I see them. And beyond that, that is pretty much everything. So let's go ahead and get started. You should see here our dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from virtualpbx.com web pages. Just look for the blue bar towards the top. There'll be a login link there. Now, to get logged in, we need 3 pieces of information: your email address, your password, and the account name, which is typically your company name. If you don't have that or don't remember, down here towards the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, there's the Forgot Your Info link. You can click on that. It'll flip it around. We still need your email address, right? We have to have that. Then we need one of the two, right? We don't need both. So either your account name or a phone number on the account. And what we mean by phone number, it's one of your customer-facing phone numbers. You would click on Reset Password. This will then trigger an email from the system that will have a link that lets you log in. That login link only allows you to change your password. Once you navigate away from that page, it will log you back out, which will take you back here. So then you enter in your password. You have the option here to click on the Remember Me box and then click on Sign In. Now, I'm using a test account that I log into on a regular basis, so the system is taking me right to my dashboard page. If it's your first time logging in, the system will actually take you to your personal account page. You can always get to your personal account page by clicking on your name towards the top right corner of the page. This is where you would change your password. And as an admin, you also have access to the account level settings. The most common thing that's changed is the time zone. Right? You would just use this pull down and search. You would search for the East Coast, right? New York, Chicago, Denver, and Los Angeles are the typical cities people look for. And then click on Save Changes. If you ever need to change your account name, this you would actually need to email our billing team, billing@virtualpbx.com, as they need to make sure everything that's linked to your account has the proper name. Once you're done here, you would click on Close towards the top right. Now that first time logging in, right, the dash wizard will pop up, showing you little pop-ups about the different things on these pages. Once you click Close, you'll be taken to your dashboard. Dash wizard pop-ups will also start up here that first time you log in. Up here at the top of the page, again, you have your name. You click on that to get to where we were just looking at, right, to change your own personal password, for instance. For most of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle, right, for Do Not Disturb. When you click on it, it'll be, to turn it on, it'll be white. And at that point, you aren't getting calls, right? You're on Do Not Disturb status. And you click on it again, turn it mostly black, that means it's off, right? Calls go to you normally. A little graduation cap here. That's will take you to our support pages, so you can see the various guides that we have available. Here, a little speech icon or chat bubbles, right? This will open up the chat window towards the bottom right of your browser page, so you can chat with one of our support team members and get some help. The 3 little horizontal line icon up here to the top right, that's the menu icon, sometimes referred to as a hamburger icon by our staff. This takes you to other dash features. We'll touch on these to some degree towards the end of the training. For the most part, the majority of our training will be here on the dashboard. And then we have the little logout icon, the little arrow pointing to the right. Now here in the center, total users, this means I have 23 users on my account. right? So these are people who are making and receiving calls. Generally speaking, I'm paying for each one of them. Right? Most of our plans are based on a per user basis. Next up, I have total devices. This is telling me I have 38 different kinds of, or 38 total devices on my account. And then a little breakdown of each type. First type is a soft phone, software application that acts as a phone. It uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. Right? So every soft phone is a VoIP device. If you don't already know, VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. Right? Uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. The soft phone bucket here, that includes the VirtualPBX soft phone and any third-party soft phones you might be using. Next up, we have cell phone. We all pretty much know what that is. The SIP phone, this is a piece of hardware, right? So it's a physical VoIP phone, right? So it sits on someone's desk, typically plugs in via an Ethernet cable to get to your internet, right, to your router, and then you make and receive calls from that. And then down here, we have the web phone. This is a web-based soft phone, right? So it uses Chrome or Firefox on a computer to make and receive calls. Down here, I have unregistered devices. It's telling me that 2 of my SIP phones are currently unregistered, and that means I can't send calls to them or receive calls from them, right? It just could be they're not plugged in, or they're, maybe that location lost internet service, or maybe there's some sort of router issue. Next up, I have total numbers. I have 31 phone numbers on my account. Your account will include at least some phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. Once you go over that allotment, you're going to be paying on a per number basis per month. Typically, like if you just signed up, I believe the standard rate right now is $1.99 per phone number when you're over your allotment. But to verify that, you'd want to talk to our account services team. Now here, we have a couple breakdowns. First is assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned numbers means you're using it, right? Someone can dial those numbers and speak to someone or leave a voicemail, be joining a conference, be sending a fax, that sort of thing. Spare numbers counts towards your allotment of numbers that you're currently not using it. So for instance, you're about to expand to a new market, you got a number for that area, but you're not putting it in use yet because that location isn't open, right? But you wanted to get the number so you can, get your marketing materials all set. Or for instance, you're running a Valentine's Day promotion, and after today, you're going to take that number out of service, so that way people aren't calling about a promotion that's no longer running. The next breakdown here is USDID and US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US-Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888, all the way down to 833. USDID, that just means a US local number, right? So a number in San Jose, California would be here, as well as, say, one in Miami, Florida. You can have international phone numbers on your account if you're so inclined. You're going to want to email our porting team. That's porting at virtualpbx.com. They need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number. They'll let you know if we can acquire a number in that region, and if then any further requirements, right? Some countries want a lot of documentation, some don't care. Conference bridges, I have 5. That means I have enabled the conference bridge feature on 5 of my users. And that just means those 5 users host or moderate the conferences. Now over towards the top right, just below where it says caller ID, hours, or hold music, etc., I have my main number box. So these 4 phone numbers, they all behave the same way, right? They're all going into the same location on my system. They're all going to have the same main greeting. You should see one that's blue on your screen. That is my default number, which we'll get to shortly. Conference number, I have 1. You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, but they're all going to the same set of conference rooms. But this is the number everyone dials to reach conference. Whether they're your staff members, vendors, or clients, they're all dialing this number first. Fax box number, you can have the 1 main fax box number, and this is your inbound fax number. And would serve also as your default outbound faxing if you set that up. The company directories, these are 2 different downloads. First up is CSV, right? This downloads a CSV file that you can use a spreadsheet program and you would see all your staff members' names, their devices, and their extension numbers. The soft phone download, this is for use specifically with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. You would download this file, upload it to your VirtualPBX soft phone on your Windows or Mac, and you would then be able to see the status of the other VirtualPBX soft phones on your account, right? So if everyone on your account is using a VirtualPBX soft phone as their primary device, it's an easy way to see their status, right? If they're on a call or not. Now, if you have a mix of devices, then you wouldn't know. Like for instance, if my colleague Mike is using his Yealink W54 or Yealink 54W, but if he's using that particular phone, I wouldn't be able to know if he's on a call or not just from my soft phone. All right, VirtualPBX Store. This is a link here, and it makes a new tab. Takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, where you can order a VoIP phone, for example, or a router, etc. And then the account realm. Every account has its own account realm. It's used for primarily two different things. The first is it's one of the three pieces of information you would need to program or provision a third-party soft phone or device. The other thing it's used for is part of faxing out. So if you set up your system to send faxes out, it's via email, right? You actually don't have to log into your Dash account to send a fax out then. You create an email like you normally do. In the to field of that email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number you're faxing to, @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you attach a PDF or TIFF file and then click send, right? The system's not going to look at the body of the email. It's not going to look at the subject line. It only cares about the to field, the from field, and the attachment. One attachment per email. All right, up here we have caller ID, just above the main numbers. When you click on caller ID here, it's going to expand out, and you see that 408 number that was blue under the main number box here. This pull down, which unfortunately doesn't always work on my streaming software, lets you choose any of your main numbers. Whichever number you choose, that becomes your default number for your VoIP phones, among other things. But that's the primary purpose of it. So that way, when your VoIP phones make an outbound call, that's the phone number that shows up as the outbound caller ID. You have the option here to enter a company caller ID name or CNAME. That means in this box here to the right, you can enter up to 15 characters. That includes spaces or special characters. So it's a hard 15-character limit. Then the system will want you to enter your company emergency information, or E911. What's a North American address? And then you click on Save Changes. Now the E911 address, right, that becomes the default for your account. So from your VoIP phones, if someone dials 911, that's the address that would get transmitted to our emergency services. You can set up E911 for each of your phone numbers independently, right? So each can have a different physical address associated with. And then you can assign the phone numbers to specific VoIP phones for just the purposes of E911, right? So if they call 911 from their VoIP phone, one address is transmitted, right? That means, and one phone number and address is transmitted to the 911 services, whereas when they make a normal outbound call, it would be your 408 number, for example. In terms of the company caller ID name, if you opted to enter something here, and clicked on Save Changes, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support this feature. It takes them approximately 3 business days to update their databases. When we send a call out, so when you make an outbound call from your VoIP phones, right? We send this phone number and then this information. That's what we can provide. Now, when your call reaches its destination, now it's possible that carriers in between us and that destination may not support CNAM, which means the CNAM information doesn't reach the destination to begin with. But even then, if it goes all the way through and it makes it to that destination carrier and phone, that destination carrier, they get to decide what goes through, right? So they can say, oh, there's CNAM information, we'll pass that through. They can say, no, we don't like your CNAM information. We're going to look up that phone number in our own set of databases and use that information instead. Or they choose not to send any CNAM information, just send the phone number through. That is not something VirtualPBX can control. This is especially prevalent with calling cell phones. The cell phone carriers do not typically participate in CNAM, And generally speaking, they want to charge their subscribers, right? So their cell phone subscribers, an additional fee in order to have that feature show up on their cell phones. Most people don't like paying extra if they don't have to. So from at least my experience, a lot of people do not pay for that feature on their cell phones. Hold music. So on Dash, you can upload your own media files. It will play back .wav and .mp3 files under 1 megabyte. And because of that file size limitation, I would recommend recording in mono. Saves you some space. You just click the browse button. After you click upload, you click the browse to find the file on your computer, click the up arrow icon, and then click save changes. Now, hold music on. This music on hold for Dash is defined as once a call has come into your system, reached one of your staff members, right? The staff member has accepted that call on a VoIP phone, then they press hold on their VoIP phone. That's when this music on hold file will play. So it's after the call is initially connected. Okay, hours is part of main number. So let's just go to main number. So first up, we have main company numbers. So these are the 4 phone numbers that we saw earlier. You can unassign a number if you don't want to use it. That means you're not deleting it. You're just saying, hey, I'm not using it in this location on my system. Down here at the bottom, you have your options to add from spare or buy new. So add from spare, right? Anywhere that you can add a phone number, right? You'll have the option to add from spare, and that's how you reuse a phone number, right? You unassigned it from one of your salespeople, and then you say, okay, now I'm going to put it to my sales group, right? You would unassign it first, and then you can assign it. Here, if I want to reuse a number, right? I just click on the checkbox in front of the number. I click on Add Selected, and now it shows up here. Right? Likewise, I can just click Unassign and remove it. For buying numbers, you have 2 options. You have local and toll-free. For toll-free, you choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with. Then you click on Search. And the system will look for the available phone numbers with the 855 prefix. If you search 800, you probably won't find any. Yeah, so any area code, including toll-free prefixes, right? You can get this message, and that just means there's none readily available, right? And especially for 800, that's the original toll-free prefix. It's been long exhausted. But here, you have readily available numbers. You would just click on Add to add it to your little cart. Shows a number. You can click on the little trash can to remove it. Now, this list is a dynamic list, right? So if I just stop here and keep talking, someone could conceivably complete the process here and take this number before I'm done, right? So you always want to make sure, once you're sure you have a number or multiple numbers, just click on By Numbers. This is a system verifying the number was still there, right? Someone didn't take it while I was talking, and then it adds it to my account, right? So you always want to complete that process. You don't want to get, taken away to a meeting or lunch, and then because you may not get that number. Now, for local, slightly different in that you need to know the area code you want a number in. Click on Search. Again, you can always get this message where there's not readily available. Now, typically, especially for a local number, what you'd want to do is, I usually just Google, right? I use Google, so I would Google 310 area code overlay. And that would tell me that the overlay for that area code is 424. And what I just said, right, is telecom speak. An overlay means multiple area codes cover the same geographic area, right? They have the same boundaries, right? So 310, 424, they cover the same city, right? The same streets. And that means that area has 10-digit dialing, which is a lot more areas than it used to be. But same process, right? You find a phone number you like, you click Add, and you click By Numbers. Once you have, anywhere you have numbers, there's a little gear icon here, right? So this is where you can adjust the caller ID. So you can adjust the outbound CNAM and turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM. right? So that means it would show up on your staff members' phones, like to see the name of the person who's calling. E911, again, you can put the address specific to this phone number. So you have people in different offices, you can have the correct office location. Prepend is a VoIP phone feature. You can add text in front of the caller ID, information that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. Gives them a heads up about what the call might be about. But again, if you don't want the numbers, you would just click on assign. And when we get to the numbers tab, we'll go through how to delete numbers from the account completely. So once you have numbers in place, you click on, you have Alpha's Hour Strategy. By default, on a new signup, you have your system is set to 24-hour open office. Excuse me. But you can choose to view custom office hours. If you do so, for each day of the week, put a check mark in front of it if you're open. And then in these boxes here to the right, you set your open hours in 24-hour or military time. And here at the bottom, which might be a little hard to see, you also have the option to say, hey, we're closed for lunch, right? And that puts your phone system into lunch mode automatically at the same time every day, right? You would just put a check mark here, and then you set your lunch hours in that 24-hour or military time. Any changes you make here, click on Save Changes, which might be cut off on YouTube. So I apologize for that. Next up, we have office holidays. If you are closed for holidays, put a check mark here. Then over here to the right, you'll have Add Holiday. You have 3 options: single day, date range, and advanced. Each one of those would create a new row. So here, you give it a name, right? New Year's Day. You choose the month and the date, save changes. Right? If you want to remove one, you would click on the little trash can icon. Right? Date range, it's like I have here for Christmas break, right? Give it a name, start date, end date. As a precaution, because there's no year indicator here, we recommend against having a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Hasn't posed a problem, but at least not recently that I know of. But again, just better be safe than sorry. For advanced, same concept, right? You give it a name, you choose the month, and then in the second pull down here, you have the options of 1st through 5th as well as last, and then you have the day of the week, right? And then click on Save Changes. And then we have incoming call handling. So for my 4 main numbers, how am I handling calls during my open hours? I have a tab for my after hours and a tab for my holidays. Right. Now, these first three options will always be here for basically every account. This 4th one only shows up under a couple of circumstances. Those circumstances are if our services team, worked with you and determined that you do needed to have some sort of special call routing. All right, so an advanced configuration. This can also show up if you have multiple auto attendants on your account and you made one or more of them available in main menu, meaning people can get to it other than through a direct phone number. Those are the primary reasons why this would show up. All right, so open hours, first option here, calls come in, they're going to my virtual receptionist. This is a link that you can click. It's gonna open up a big old window. So on the left is your main menu. This is what you use to tell what buttons to press, or how you determine what the buttons are and where they go. It's probably a better way of saying that. Down here, you click on Add Route, gives you a new row. This first pull down, 0 through 9, as well as the star key and the default action. The second pull down is where you want it to go. Now, if you just signed up with this, you don't have really anything to go other than the default user, right? This system has a lot of things already built in, so I have a lot more options, right? So the PBX directory will always be here, right? At least one user will show up, right? Because you had a user was created for you when your account was created. In this case, I have multiple users to choose from. If I scroll down, I have groups, which we'll be touching on shortly. Groups is short for ring groups or hunt groups, right? Departments. Oh, I skipped this section. Up here, call queues. This is an upgrade feature. If you're interested in queues, you probably want to talk to our account services team to make sure you know what you're getting into in terms of pricing. Queues are an advanced version of groups. They have more advanced call routing options. a little bit more control for your users. Next section is devices, right? So you can send calls to a specific phone, right? So someone can press 1 and rings Bob's cell phone if you wanted it to. Typically not recommended just because if that phone doesn't have a built-in voicemail, the call will end after 20 seconds and you might have a frustrated customer. And then you have voicemail boxes, right? So, press 0 to leave a message, right? Pretty common thing. And then you also have media files. This would be if you want to have a message play for like hours of operation or directions. Just be aware, once that media file stops playing, the call ends. If you want to remove one of these, there's a little X here at the far right, and that removes it. Of course, none of that would stick until you click save and save changes. Over here to the right, greetings. These are your greeting options. The greeting is where you say thank you for calling and your organization name. And after that, the primary purpose after that is to give your caller directions, right? Tell them what to press and how to navigate through your system. You can include things like, your hours of operations or promotions or what have you. But again, primarily it's to give direction to your inbound caller. First up, we have text-to-speech. This essentially is you type in a greeting, you click update, save, and save changes, and the system reads it back out to the inbound caller with a computerized or robotic voice. There are some limitations. The text-to-speech greeting can only be 250 characters long. Does not count spaces, but that's not words, right? Characters, right? Individual letters. There is some variance. I've had some greetings up to 300 characters long, but 250 works consistently. The other limitation is you're not able to give a name to this greeting. The system names it for you. In this case, it'd be my main open hour, right? So main, right? Then open hours, menu, TTS for text-to-speech. Now, if I call in and let's say I forgot a menu option, right? Or I meant to list Bob's extension and I didn't, right? I can come here and edit this file, right? Click update, save, and save changes. But now I'm going to have two files that are called main open hours menu TTS. And that can be a problem from any pull down that I want to look at because I have no easy way to differentiate the two. So if you use text-to-speech greetings, I always recommend go on the left-hand side, click after you click save and save changes and all that, hit the greetings tab over on the left, change the file name. Just something that you'll recognize, right? Even if it's just, first greeting, right? Versus second greeting or what have you, just so you can recognize easily in case you need to go back and forth between greetings. You can upload your own file, .wav, .mp3, under 1 megabyte, recorded in mono just for file saving purposes. You just click on choose file, find that file on your computer, click update, save, and save changes. You can choose from an existing recording. This pull down would show every media file on your account, right? Whether that's a main greeting, a voicemail greeting, or hold music file. That's why you want names that you can recognize easily. You can record it over the phone. Now, by default, the system here says pick up a phone registered on the account. That means pick up a VoIP phone, right? That's a security feature. If you don't want to use a VoIP phone, or you can't, let's say you just signed up for us and you ordered VoIP phones, but they're not there yet. It's literally the same day you signed up. Then what you would want to do is under settings, where it says allow outside recording, turn that on, right? Save changes. That will allow you to call in and change your main greeting over the phone with any device. Now, even with that, you still need this PIN number. This PIN number is specific to this account and this time of day, right? So like this PIN number would not work for your accounts. Likewise, it only works during my open hours. So if I call after 5 p.m. and I enter this PIN number, I'll get an invalid entry message, right? It won't recognize it. So I can only change my open hours greeting during my open hours over the phone. Now, if you did choose to allow outside recording to be on, when you're done, we do recommend you turn it off. click save and save changes. And again, that way some random person couldn't accidentally somehow or on purpose, if they're that kind of person, change your main greeting on you. Oh, one thing to also know about recording over the phone. For your new accounts, if you just signed up, right? When you first call your number, you'll hear a message that the greeting for this menu has not been recorded yet, and it will prompt you to enter the PIN number. But let's say, however, you started off with text-to-speech, right? And then you got feedback from your customer saying, hey, that was weird. Didn't know it was you, or was unsure, right? So then you're like, well, let me record it my voice to give reassurance to my customers. When you call in, your text-to-speech greeting will play. You can still enter in this PIN number, and then the system will walk you through recording it over the phone. Now, when you record it over the phone, the system doesn't give you an opportunity to change the file name. So it just overwrites the content and reuses the file name. Right? So in this case, main open hours menu TTS would still have that file name, but it would have your voice instead with whatever you set on there. Professional recording services, when you click order here, it's going to open a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings. They bill you directly via credit card. They email you the completed file, so then you would come up here to upload your own files. All right, settings. First one here, number of retries on missed dial. This is how many times the customer can make or the inbound caller can make a mistake. The customer already has one attempt built in, right? So this is how many additional attempts. So when I have 2 here, that means my inbound caller has 3 total attempts, right? The initial one that they get automatically plus 2 more. Dialing timeout, this is how much time the system waits after it hears that first button press before it assumes the caller is done, right? So for multi-digit extensions. So in this scenario, right, someone calls in and let's say they press 5, right? Not a valid option. The system will wait 10 seconds before it assumes they're done. It says, oh, well, there's no menu option 5. There's no extension number 5. It'll replay the main greeting, right? Caller presses 7. The system waits 10 seconds. Says, oh, nope, no menu option 5, no extension 7. Plays the greeting a 3rd time. And let's say they press 9. System waits 10 more seconds. Says, okay, not a valid menu option, not a valid extension. Then the system would say, we did not recognize your entry, and either send them to a default action, right? So if I click add route here, right, default action. So if I have this, if I left this here, after that they press 9, that 3rd attempt, the system would send them to the PBX directory. If I don't have a default action, sure why that's not going away. There it goes. On that 3rd attempt, the system would say, we did not recognize your entry, and then say goodbye and end the call. And the reason you may not want a default action is for robodialers, right? Robodialers would hang out, and then get to that default action and use up more time. Generally speaking, for number of retries, I usually say anywhere from 1 to 3 for most people. I also say change the dialing timeout to 5 or less. Right? Most people are fairly quick about entering extension numbers. Next setting, allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on, and that just means if the caller calls in and enters a valid extension number, the system will transfer the call. If you turn this off, inbound caller calls in, they can only press 0 through 3. 0, 1, 2, or 3. Anything else is an invalid entry unless they happen to hit your PIN number for your recording over the phone. And then you have to suppress the playing of invalid entry. So let's put the default action back in. If, for instance, callers call in and after their failed attempts, you still want the caller to end up someplace. Whether that means they go to automatically to a voicemail box or to a default phone number, device or user or what have you. But you don't want them to hear that message about, oh, we didn't recognize your entry, and then transferring the call, right? Please wait while we transfer message. You can turn this on. So now after that last failed attempt, the system just automatically transfers the call. There's no additional message played to your inbound caller. All right. Any changes you make to your main menu, your greetings, or your settings, make sure you click Save down here, and then it'll take you back to incoming call handling. Make sure you click Save Changes here. You're clicking Save twice. Okay, the second option here, this is your designed to be a live operator answer option. If we go to my after hours, you'll see here, during my after hours, my calls come into my front desk ring group, right? So group of my staff members. If they're not able to answer, it then goes to the virtual receptionist. Now, this is my after hours, so I would have different menu options and a different greeting in place. Now, this first pull down, again, designed typically to either send calls to a user, a queue, or a group first. You could also send it to a device, right? A specific phone to ring, again, for 20 seconds. That's hard-coded. You could have it play a media file. I don't recommend it just because that might be confusing for your inbound caller, because they'll hear the initial greeting and then they'll get to the virtual receptionist where they'll hear a second greeting. So that will likely, for most people, that will throw them off. This third option here, in this case, under holidays, I'm saying, hey, go directly to this voicemail box. This first pull down, though, yeah, those same kind of options, right? You can send it to a user, a group, a call queue, a media file, a device, etc. Again, it rings it for 20 seconds, and then after that, it goes to the voicemail box that you specify here. Main conference number, you can have multiple conference numbers if you want, right? So you have the option to buy new or add from spare. The custom greeting is actually text-to-speech greeting, right? You can turn it on and you can type in what you want it to say, 250 character limit. Even without one enabled, the system says welcome to the conference and then prompts the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. The main fax box, you can have the one main fax box number, which is why I don't have the option here to buy new or add from spare. But once you've added a number, you can click Edit Fax Box here. And there are two fields that you can enter information into. The first one is the inbound notification email, right? You put in an email address here. Whenever a fax comes through, this email address is sent an email. It's going to have the date, the time, phone numbers involved, and then a PDF attachment of the fax. Right, so then that person or people can then double click on the attachment and view the fax. Likewise, if someone dials your main fax box number, say from their cell phone, right, they'll hear fax tones. Most people are going to hang up after they hear fax tones. But this email address will still get an email saying that there was a failed inbound fax attempt. Now, if in the body of that email with the phone number information, there's things like wireless number, that was a misdial and you can ignore it. But if it's a number you recognize or expecting a fax from, you'd want to contact that other person to find out, what happened. Right? Their fax machine may have given them some details. Oh, whoops. Did not mean to do that. The second field here is email permissions. This is for your outbound faxing. This is designed for your company email domain to be inputted here. And that way, everyone at your company can send a fax out, even if they're not a user on your Dash account. But after you enter information here, click on Save Changes. All right, I'm going to skip around a little bit just because it makes a little bit more sense too. So next up, I'm going to go to Users here on the left. This is your user page. Shows all your users on the account. People who are just a gray person icon, standard user, right? They have very limited access. Little blue suit icon, those are your system admins, meaning they can do everything we've been talking about and will continue to talk about. Up here at the top, you can click on Add User. And you basically fill out the form, right? First name, last name, should be pretty easy. It does want some information here, right? So if you're making like an extra user for whatever purposes, it doesn't have an actual person associated with it yet, right? You could put like test user, or A and then C, right? Just to have something. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user, right? You cannot reuse an email address. This is also the way the system communicates with the user, right? So voicemail, email notification would go to the email address used for login. Password resets as well. Password, you would create a password for the user, whatever you want it to be. The main extension number, you can enter in the extension number you want to use. Like this account was started with extension 1000, so the system is suggesting 1020 as the next available extension number, but I can enter in, 8855. Right? Typically speaking, I do recommend 4-digit extensions as that gives you a lot of versatility and ease of use for, well, at least for hot desking as a feature if you're going to use that. By default, the system will automatically create a voicemail box for the user. This voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So let's say you created the user and then you add a device to them, like a Yailing phone, for example. When the phone gets fully registered, they can pick up their phone, dial *98 on their phone, and then click send or call. That will automatically log them into the voicemail box that you created with their user. The system will prompt them to create a voicemail box PIN number and then walk them through recording their voicemail greeting. Here's your option to have them in the user directory. You can always change this later. You have an option here to send emails to an alternate address. This would be instead of the email address used for login. Right? So if you want those password resets or voicemail notifications to go to a different email address, you would click the box here and enter that different email address in this field here. This is something you can also do later. And then lastly, send credentials to the user. Put a check mark here. They will, after you click create user or create user and add another, this new user on the account will get an email from the system welcoming them to their Dash account and provide them with their Dash login information. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. You can change their name. Here, you have the option to change their credentials, right? So if you click on that, so you can change the email address or their password. Right here is an option to send them the password, the email password reset link. Right, if they want to change their own password. Change PIN, you can change their voicemail box PIN number. Here's the option to send to an alternate address. Here's the option to be in the user directory or not. Over here on the right, little person icon, this is where you change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. Here is the time zones. You can just do a search for the appropriate city, and that way their voicemail timestamps are correct, for instance. A little flag is the display language for the web page, for these web pages for this user. You have English, French, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout by default for users is 20 seconds, which is plenty of time for a landline or a VoIP phone. If you have a user who's only using a cell phone, you'd want to increase this to at least 30 seconds, if not up to 45. In this case, it's grayed out because Aaron here has a feature called Follow Me enabled, which it takes over for the default ringing timeout. More customization. On the extensions box, you can have users have multiple extension numbers if you want them to. You don't need them to. They should have one main extension that enables like their voicemail box, etc. Users can have their own phone numbers. They get multiple, right? You can add from new or add from spare, buy new, etc. This phone number is available 24/7, right? It does not have hours of operation. So it can be inconvenient if someone has their personal cell phone behind that on their user. Oh, oops. One other thing, again, you have the little gear icon here, so you can update the caller ID, E911, etc. The devices tab is where you can add new devices to a user or reuse an existing device, right? If you have one that you want to move to a different user. First up, SIP phone. This is that physical phone, right? Piece of hardware. Some manufacturers have a lot of models to choose from. Some only have a few. But you find the make and model of the phone you're going to work with. Then down here, you give it a name, right? Like in this case, Aaron's phone, or Ariel's phone, I think. I forget which user I'm on right now. And then you need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each device. It's a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, usually under its status or basic settings, you'll find it there. And then you would enter the information here. You click on Create Device. And then you would click on Save Changes. After that, the only other thing you have to do is unlock the device. So if I go down here to Bob, right, if I click on his Yealink phone here, I would go to Advanced and then Miscellaneous. And where it says Allow Reprovision, click Unlock. Right? And then I would click on Save Changes. Now, as far as our dashboard is concerned, that's all you need to do. Right? You've added it to a user, you've unlocked it. You do need to log into the web user interface and basically give it a URL. Tell it, hey, go here, get your config file. For the specifics of that, right, for the various manufacturers, you want to go to our support pages and you're looking for the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. Right, it's going to have screenshots for these various manufacturers, the proper syntax for the URL, and in some cases, some other settings to double check. Actually, we'll go up to Aaron here. So you also have the option here for cell phone. Right, you put in the device name and the number, you click on Create Device. I'm going to click on the demo device here. This is what it looks like. Right, +1 area code and phone number. No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. We go to Advanced Options. This is the default setup for a cell phone or landline. Now, in terms of how Dash handles calls to these devices, some things you should know. First and foremost, call will route in, that device will ring. When you pick it up, the first thing your staff members will hear is, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When they press 1, they're telling the system, yes, they're there, and yes, they want to take the call. Right? So it's a audio tell of, hey, this is a work call, especially if you're talking about their cell phone. Now, that's great if there's someone there to press 1, right? Let's say, for instance, you've also contracted out with an answering service, right? And they gave you a phone number, say, hey, just forward your calls to this phone number, and our system will then handle the call, right? It's an automated system. In that scenario, right here, where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, you want to put a check mark here and then click on Save Changes. So now when we send a call to this phone number, instead of that message saying this is a forwarded call +1, or please press 1, that message doesn't play. Instead, we send the phone call to this phone number, we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. Right? No need to press 1. We're not waiting for anything. We just hear that pickup tone and saying, hey, boom, go through, which is great if you're sending a call to an automated answering service. Right? Now, if I did this on my personal cell phone, if I don't answer the call, right, my cell phone rings, and I'd say I'm, in the middle of a meeting. I'm like, nope, can't take this call. My cell phone voicemail picks up instead. That's a pickup tone, so the system can send that caller to my personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that to happen. Many people don't. So that's a personal preference. The other thing to keep in mind is this one here. Keep original caller ID. By default, this is on. And what that means is when customer Mary calls into the system, when it gets to my cell phone, I see customer Mary's phone number show up on my cell phone. Now, maybe I don't recognize the number, or I've been getting hit with a lot of robodialers on my cell phone, so I just let it go. I'm like, nope, I'll let it go to voicemail. I'll call this person back. Right? I don't recognize the number. If I uncheck this, right, then click on Save Changes, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, we go back to the dashboard. Under caller ID, this 408 phone number that I selected, that's the phone number that shows up on my cell phone's display as the inbound caller ID. So I'm like, oh, this is my work number, right? This is a call it's worthwhile for me to take, assuming I'm not in a meeting. Let's go back to users. The other one I really want to cover is a soft phone. So on the users page, anywhere you add a soft phone, it's going to give you this message, which you should read at least once. Now, on the users page, you have an additional option. After you click close on that warning message, this big box shows up, and right down here at the bottom, it says use third-party application. So what that means is the system is defaulting saying, hey, you're using someone else's soft phone app, not the VirtualPBX soft phone. If you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone, you need to click here where it says use third-party application. And now it flipped it, right? It says use VirtualPBX application. You just need to give it a name, right? So like Bob's phone. You would click on create device. And then you click on save changes. Once you click on save changes, Ariel here, you'll get an email, saying, hey, your VirtualPBX soft phone is ready. Here's your login information and download links. Now, if you didn't click that use VirtualPBX application, no email gets sent. It's saying, hey, you have some other app you're going to use. Here's your information to, the SIP username and password. So let's go back real quick here. So if I don't click here at the bottom, the SIP username, I would copy and paste that, and then click on the SIP password box. I'd copy and paste that, and then copy and paste the realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information I would need to set up a third-party soft phone application. All right, and then you would just give it a name, click on create device, and save changes. The other device you always want to add on the user is the web phone. The web phone, right, you can get there via webphone.virtualpbx.net on Chrome or Firefox. It will ask you to log in. However, it uses your dash login information. So if you add it directly to the user, it already has that information associated with it. So just put a name here, click on create device, and save changes. All right, user features. First up is caller ID number. This feature you can only enable on a user that has their own phone number. When you enable it and click on save changes, what you're doing is saying, hey, when this user makes an outbound call, their VoIP phone will automatically use this 323 phone number as their outbound caller ID, not the 408 number I have set up on the main dashboard page. You can, even if user has a phone number, you don't have to turn this on, right? It could just be something they hand out to get to them directly. Next up is the virtual text application. Now, this feature will not show up immediately on a new sign up. There's now, I believe, a registration process in place. Otherwise, you would have to contact our account services team. But once it's here, you would click to enable it, and then you select the phone number on the account, right? Either a main number, an auto attendant number, or a number that's already assigned to the user. Then you click on Save Changes. When you click on Save Changes, the user gets an email welcoming them to virtual text. Now, that means it's possible your staff members will have 3 emails from us with 3 different pieces of login information, right? One for their dash login, right? dash.virtualpbx.com. One for their soft phone application, if you're using the VirtualPBX soft phone app, and then a third one for virtual text. Virtual text you can use in 2 ways, right? Via a website, virtualtext.app, or on your cell phone, downloading the virtual text app. You would log in, then you can text your customers. The main advantage of virtual text is you can share numbers among your staff members, so you have multiple people tracking conversations that are happening with your customers. Voicemail box. Helps when you click it. This is your default setup. Now, for voicemail box to be enabled, a user has to have an extension number because the system will use that extension number and map it to their voicemail box, right? So a user with extension 1000 will have voicemail box 1000. Transcription, I believe, is still technically a plan-specific feature, but basically all that is the system listens to the voicemail message and tries to type it out in the email notification to the best of its ability. Obviously, if people are not speaking into their microphone properly or their microphone picked up a lot of background noise, that's going to impact the quality of that transcription. But by default, voicemail to email, and the system will attach the voicemail message to the email. That's an MP3 file, so you get the email, you can double click on it and listen to it. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, they are full and cannot accept any more. That with this default setup, your staff can check voicemails in 3 ways. One, the email, right? They can just listen to it and move on. But that doesn't delete it from their system or from the system in general. However, with this default setup, your staff members can call in and listen to their voicemails over the phone. And when they do so, they'll have the option to delete messages. They can also log in via the website and go to the user portal. And the user portal defaults you to the voicemail tab. So then you can see your messages there, play them back, download them, or delete them. Now, if you have staff members that aren't good about doing that, or like you have the option here to delete messages after the notification email is sent. Put a check mark here. So what happens is voicemail is left, email gets sent to the user, system deletes the voicemail from the system, right? So that way the voicemail box doesn't get full. However, that means that user can only ever check their voicemail messages via email. And if for some reason they're not getting their emails, whatever that may be, they're losing those voicemail messages. Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. Here, let's disable this real quick. So when you first come here and enable it, it looks like this. You need to tell the system which devices you want to use. So then over here on the far right where it says do not ring, you uncheck the devices you want to use, assuming the system will let me. Let's try that again. There we go. And then you have little sliders, right? So you click and drag to the right to change the ring duration. Now, you can click and drag on the names of these and change the order. You have timestamps up here. The default is 120 seconds, so you can click distribute. These are still adjustable though. If I want to, and again, I can change the order if I want to, and then click distribute. Likewise, I could just do this, which would be ringing them both for the same amount of time. But any changes here, you click on Save Changes. Fax box, you can set up users with their own fax box. Now, right, this would be in addition to your main fax box or even instead of. You have a pull down here. You can select either a spare number or buy a new number, or you can add an extension number. Right, so that means this user would have 2 extension numbers, one for faxing and one for normal. The recommendation is always to use a phone number, and that is because that way this user can send and receive faxes. If you choose an extension number, they can only ever receive a fax, and even then, you potentially limit who they can get faxes from. Right? It's possible that, like from most electronic fax services that I've run into, they don't have the ability to send faxes to an extension. They just say, hey, enter a phone number, attach your document, send. Right? No options for an extension. So that's the main reason why you would want to use a phone number. Conference Bridge. When you click Enable, the only thing you need to do as an admin is create a PIN number and then click on Save Changes. Your users can adjust their PIN numbers on their own via the user portal. The enabled video conferencing, that is for in-house use, right? So only your Dash users will be able to make use of video conferencing. Anyone outside will not be able to. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Your staff members can turn call forwarding off or on their own. They can do that via their VoIP phone or via the user portal. Failover mode is something system admin has to set up. You choose a mobile or desk phone, you put +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, dashes, or parentheses, click on Save Changes. What failover mode is when a call comes into the system and the user's normal VoIP phone goes offline, the system will automatically forward to the phone number you designated. Now, in Aaron's case here, right, he already has 2 devices. So I don't really need to have call forwarding on, because even if his VoIP phone is unregistered, it still will send calls to this 408 number. Right, and even if I turn Follow Me off, I do save changes. All right, since he still has the two devices, what it just means is calls come to him, it rings them both at the same time. So if the VoIP phone's unregistered, it just sends it to the cell phone, right? And then he can pick up. Customized call recording. When you first enable it, it looks like this. And the system basically wants you to tell it what kind of calls should I record. Inbound or internal, right? Coworker Bob called Aaron. Right? Inbound external, customer Mary called Aaron. Outbound external, Aaron called coworker Bob. Outbound external is Aaron called customer Mary. And I can even choose, oh, I don't want the internal calls. I don't care about those, etc. And save changes. Now, every account includes some level of storage. If you just signed up, check the pricing page. Otherwise, you'd want to talk to our account services team. If you have heavy call volume and you're recording every call, you definitely want to talk to our account services team about AWS integration. And what that is you create or use your existing AWS account and you link it to your Dash account and you store the call recordings there instead of with us. Especially for those high volume kind of customers, it's much more cost effective. Music on hold. You can choose to have your users have their own hold music if you want them to. You can upload a file or choose an existing file on the system. .wave.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. This would play instead of the music on hold that we set up on the dashboard. So for instance, for your sales team, right, they could have hold music that's talking about the current promotions, whereas say your service team has information about going to the website for solutions, etc. All right. Do not disturb. If you enable it, that just means calls to this user aren't going to ring their devices, right? They're going to voicemail. They also would not be offered calls from groups, which could cause a problem with groups when we get to it, and also if they're in queues. Hot desking, when you enable it, this is for your VoIP phone users. You set up a hot desk ID. So for instance, if you're making use of 4-digit extensions, just make their hot desk ID their extension number. You can choose to require a PIN number or not, and you can allow a login from multiple devices. Then you click on Save Changes. So this is for a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling. Again, it's for VoIP phones only. So Aaron comes into the office on Tuesday. He sits down at desk number 2. He picks up the VoIP phone that's there. He hits *11 on the VoIP phone. That turns on hot desking on that phone. The system will ask him for his hot desk ID and then PIN number if you required it. And once he does that, the system says calls will now be sent to this device. So the rest of his workday, while he's at desk number 2, any calls that come to his user ring him at that device he's sitting at. End of his day, he picks up the handset, hits *12 to turn off hot desking. Next time he comes in the office, someone's already sitting at desk number 2. He moves on to desk number 5. Same thing, right? Picks up the phone, *11, hot desk ID, PIN number if required. Now calls are coming to him at desk number 5. All right, groups. Sometimes referred to as hunt groups or ring groups, departments. Up here at the top, you click Add Group. You give it a name, and you give it an extension number. After that, you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group. Click on Create Groups. Now, once a group is created, you can click on its name. All right, so you can change the name at any time. Then you've got the group call attempts. A little one here. There's little arrows here to the far right, so you can increase or decrease it as you need it to. And that's just the number of times the system will offer a call to the members of the group. Right, so I can change this to 2. So that means that each member of the group has an opportunity to have their phone rung twice, assuming that no one answered the call the first time through. Then here's your option to delete the group. Otherwise, you click on Save Changes. Next up, we have the members box. this shows my staff members that are assigned to this group and my current ring setup, right? In this case, this is referred to as a ring all or blast ringing. So it's ringing all of my staff members at the same time for the same amount of time. Now, when calls come from a group to a user, it will ring all of their devices. So like if, I believe Aaron's in this group still, double check, yes he is. So if I had left on follow me calling on Aaron's user and a call comes to him from the group, that call from the group ignores his follow me settings. It's gonna ring both of his devices at the same time. Right, so that's one way he would know, oh, this is a group call versus someone entering his extension number or dialing his direct phone number. Now, along the top here, I have timestamps and I can edit this timestamp. Right, I also have the option to click distribute, right, kind of like under the follow me settings. So in this setup, right, calls are offered to Bob for 20 something seconds, and then Aaron, and then Peter. Now, this for calls to a group, the system doesn't notice or doesn't care if Bob, for instance, is on a call, right? It's not going to skip him. So call came into the group, Bob answered, right? Because he knows he's first, that's his job, right? So he's helping the customer. Second call comes into this group. The system still tries to offer the call to Bob. So like if he has call waiting enabled on his phone, he would hear a beep, right? If he disabled, he wouldn't know. Right, after the 24 seconds, then the caller would then be offered to Aaron. Right, so then he would pick up, hopefully, answer the call, etc. Right, so if a third caller calls in, right, Bob and Aaron are still on calls, that third caller won't have an opportunity to have it answered until after 48 seconds. That's finally when Peter can then pick up, etc. Now, just like in Follow Me, right, these are sliders, so you could set up multiple people to ring right away, so that way people aren't waiting on hold too long, and have it staggered like that. So that way, oh, it's sometimes a little bit busy, but doesn't get overwhelmingly busy, etc. Now, down here at the bottom left, you can add additional users. And then you can click distribute again, right? Likewise, you can remove people. Now, if you need to change the order, right, you click and drag. Now, since Bob's still at 0 seconds here, he's still first until I click distribute. And then any changes, you click on save changes or cancel if you want. Groups can have multiple extension numbers, right? You just click on add extension and you can enter in a new extension number. Groups can have their own phone numbers if you want them to, right? Add from spare or buy new. But just like under users, this group these phone numbers don't have hours of operation. So they can ring 24/7. All right, then we've got group features. First up is ring back. So when a call comes into the group, right, reaches out to your staff members phones ring. That ringing sound is then piped back to your inbound caller, right? Ring back. If you don't want that ringing sound to be piped back to your inbound callers, you can enable this feature and upload a media file, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. That will play instead of that ringing sound. And then you would click on Save Changes. Next action, to me, this is the most important group feature. When you enable it, if no one answers, where do you want the calls to be sent? Right? You have this pull down, so you can send it to a voicemail box, you can send it to a different group, you can send it to a specific user or a specific device, back to this main the main menu, right? Your virtual receptionist, etc. Allow call forward. If you enable this, then your staff members can forward calls, right? So let's say if your staff members only use VoIP phones, and let's say they only use a Yealink phone, so that's how you spec everyone out. And they're going to be like at a customer site. If you have allow call forward on, they can forward their VoIP phone to send calls to their cell phone, right? So that way, if they're not in the middle of a meeting, they can answer calls from the group still. Caller ID prepend, this is for your VoIP phone users. You can add additional text or numbers to the caller ID that is displayed on their VoIP phones. And then you would click on Save Changes. So useful to give your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about. All right. Auto attendance is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create secondary attendance. So a couple use cases. The first is submenuing. So like if you want callers come into your main numbers and then they play a greeting saying, hey, for English, press 1, for Spanish, press 2, right? And then you would repeat it in Spanish. You would then create secondary attendance, one in English, one in Spanish, would have its own greeting in the appropriate language, and the menu options go to staff members for the appropriate language. Right, that's one of the most common submenu setups. The other use case is if you run multiple businesses, right? So each business has its own set of phone numbers, its own main greeting, but you have staff members answering calls, the same staff members answering calls for these businesses, right? So like a cleaning business and a dog walking business, right? Two different greetings, but and two different menu options, sets of menu options, but you can have the same staff answer calls for them. So up here at the top, you would click on Add Attendant. Right? You give it a name and an extension number. The extension number is not something your customers would ever probably know, but your staff members could use it to send callers to the right company. So let's say you have, someone who's only deals with your cleaning business. They have no idea what the dog walking business is like, and they get a call randomly. A call gets to them about the dog walking business. Your staff member could transfer to this extension number to send the caller to the correct company, right? And then the right staff members can answer the call. Once an attendant is created, you can click on the name. Now, by default, it starts like this: unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone attendant, right? Designed to be on its own. Now you can click here, it says unavailable in main menu, and then now it's available in main menu. So now it's a menu option that can show up anywhere on your account, right? It could be go from a group's next action. It can be a menu option under your virtual receptionist. Right, you can also delete an attendant. Otherwise, you would click on Save Changes. Attendants can have their own phone numbers. Right, you can have multiple phone numbers. You have the option here for caller ID, E91, etc. So again, would it make sense for an attendant that has its own business? Attendants can have multiple extensions if you want them to. I don't know why you would, but you could do so. And then you have the little wrench icon here under settings. Usually takes a little while for it to show up, but here you have my open hours, after hours, and holidays. So these times or dates, in the case of holidays, match what you set up under your main number. Right? So in this case, we're 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Now, if you have one business that's open 24/7 and one that's Monday to Friday 9 to 5, you'd want to talk to our account services team, and they'll see if it's still viable for you to use multiple auto attendants or if you need to have multiple accounts. Just depends how often you're manipulating things. But if everything matches up or can match up, then your secondary business here, you've set up your routing options, right? Your menu options, and then your greetings and the settings, save and save changes. The devices tab. So here you can see your devices. Red means unregistered, can't send a call to it. Black means you've turned it off, right? So you can turn it on if you want to. And then green means it's registered, so we can send a call to it. You can add devices here, right? It's the same basic process as we did under the user. The main thing to remember is for the soft phone on the devices page, it looks like this. There is no option under the devices tab to change a soft phone to the VirtualPBX soft phone. You can only do that on the users page. Beyond that, little wrench icon here. Under advanced, audio. Opus is typically what we recommend for our soft phone app. Anything else, you'd want to use the G711A and G711U over here on the right under selected, right, click and drag. And let's go to them. Also under advanced emergency information, right? You can select a phone number and then the attendant E911 address that you want associated with a specific VoIP phone, right? So that way, when Peter calls 911 from this Cisco phone, this is the address that gets transmitted to emergency services instead of the address I have set up under my main number, right? The idea being, hey, when I'm calling 911, I want them to go to this right address. All right, Greetings tab. This shows all your media files on the account. Main greetings, voicemail greetings, hold music files. Up here at the top, you can add new ones here, right? Upload. Give it a name, click on Browse to find the file, click on Create Greeting, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Here, right, you see the name of the file, the source, right? Upload, you uploaded the file. TTS, text to speech, and recording means it was recorded over the phone. The play icon down this column here lets you listen to the file right in your browser. If for some reason that doesn't work, you have the download icon, right? Download the file to your device, listen to it in your music player. And then you have the little wrench icon here. This lets you change the name of the file to something you would recognize, as well as the option to delete it if you know it's no longer needed. Obviously, if you change the name, click on Save Changes. Numbers tab. Numbers in use shows the numbers that in their use and where they're assigned. You can't unassign a number here or assign a number here, right? This only lets you know where they're currently associated with. But you can do the little gear icon to update the caller ID, E911, or prepend. If you go to spare numbers, these are the numbers you're not using. So if you're over your allotment for your plan and you want to get rid of numbers, go to your spare numbers and then click on the box next to the numbers that you want to get rid of, and then click on delete. And now the numbers are removed from your account. Now you can still buy numbers here on your spare numbers page, right? And just add them as new spare numbers, local or toll free, same thing that we've been showed you earlier. The port link here, this starts your port request or the porting process, right? You give it a name, choose local or toll free. Now it wants you to upload a recent copy of your bill from your current carrier, right? Dated within the last 30 days. Basically, you just follow the steps, right? The system's going to want the address associated with it, the BTN, which is the billing telephone number. That if you're only porting one number, the BTN is that phone number you're porting. If you're porting multiple, you'd want to talk to your current carrier to find out. You'll have the opportunity to download a blank LOA or letter of agency, and then you want to upload a completed and signed LOA. Right? The LOA has two fields, right? Or a couple many fields, but one of the fields is, person's name and then person's signature or authorized signature, right? It does need a signature, whether that's a digital signature file or you printed it out, signed it manually, and scanned it back in, right? If you print your name twice or type in your name twice, will get rejected, and we typically catch that and say, hey, it needs to be signed. But anytime we've tried to submit an LOA that was just printed twice, the person's name was printed twice or typed twice, it's been rejected. And the rejection doesn't necessarily have to come right away, right? The losing carrier can respond in a few days, which just delays when your port completes. Go ahead and cancel this. Now, typically speaking, toll-free numbers take about a week, right? It's like 3 to 5 business days. Local numbers average about 2 to 3 weeks. In both cases, that presumes everything is correct. If we get a rejection, we double check, right? Make sure there wasn't a typo. Or in the case of like an address, if we have multiple addresses to use, we try them. If there's nothing for us to correct or nothing for us to try, then we have to let you know, saying, hey, we got a rejection for this specific reason. You're going to want to double check with your current carrier to find out what the correct information is for porting out purposes. When it comes to porting, both accounts need to be active, right? So if you're porting from AT&T to VirtualPBX, for at least a little while, you'll have two accounts, one with them, right? One with AT&T, one with VirtualPBX. Once the port completes, you get an email from us saying, hey, your port's here. We tested the number, so we know it works with our system, right? Calls are routing through it, and we can see it. At that point, then you can go back to AT&T and say, hey, my number ported out, cancel my account, right? But you want that email. And normally I recommend also just after you get that email saying it port's complete, double check it yourself. All right, voicemail boxes. This shows all your voicemail boxes on the account. Anything with an entry here in this third field, that means that was the voicemail box that was created when the user was created. All right, so intrinsically tied to the user. But up here at the top, you can create new voicemail boxes. This would be, for instance, for a voicemail box for one of your groups or ACD queues. Or like you want a general information box that's not assigned to a specific person, right? Give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number. Click on Create a Voicemail Box. Once a voicemail box is created, you can click on the wrench at any time, right, to review the basic settings. So in case you need to check the voicemail messages over the phone. Under Advanced, then you got Greeting Media. You typically do want a file here, right? Now, even if you left this at none, the system says, please leave a message after the tone. So there's at least a generic message in place. But you can upload your own files, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono, right? Under the basic information page, right? The voicemail box number and the PIN number, that's what you would use to log into the voicemail box over the phone. So you can also record over the phone. Now, the temporary file, that's for that vacation or out of office message. So if you have something selected in temporary, it will play. The file that's selected under media will not until you took the temporary file back to none and click save. Recipients, your user voicemail boxes have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. If you want them to have additional recipients, or in the case of a manually created voicemail box, you want to add a recipient here by clicking here, enter the email address. Click add to add additional email addresses, right? Keep, basically add email address, add until you're done. Once you're done, you would then click on Save Changes. Now we have the options. So once you have a media file in place and recipients in place, under Options, you can then click on the box in front of Already Set Up. And especially for the case of the manually created voicemail boxes, you want to double check these two here. If you're attaching messages to voicemails, typically yes, and or if you want to delete after notification is sent out. Again, depends how good your staff is on keeping up with voicemails. All right, call logs. Call logs show your history of calls that are coming in and out of your system. You have a today box where you can see some numbers, some calls have come in and left. And if you click on them, sometimes you can see some additional details. You can download this file as a CSV. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you can get a better idea of what is going on with your system. And so here you see a green arrow to the right. That's a call coming into the system. You see here the call was offered to this specific device, but the user did not answer. Whereas on this number, interesting, that's normally a different device. Now, the yellow arrow to the left, that's an outbound call. Shows you the devices. interesting. The custom tab, you can set your date range. The system will let you go back up to 1 year, 12 months. And then if you need to go further than back, our engineers can go back up to 18 months, right? That's an escalation. They normally get back to you fairly quickly, but it's not right away. So if you need your call log information for any kind of compliance reasons, I recommend doing this at least once a month. If you have heavy call volume, you might need to set your date range to a week-by-week basis. Because sometimes, like after 500 records, it can have problems. Generally speaking, you want to see normal clearing. That just tells you the call ended normally. Anything else might be a little suspect, like incompatible, like this one here, incompatible destination. That usually points to a codec problem on the device that the system was trying to reach to. The little fire hydrant icon here, this will create an email for you that's automatically addressed to support@virtualpbx.com. It will have the technical details of the call. Please, in the body of that email, type in why you're sending it in. Right? Just the technical details doesn't tell us everything. Like if I send in on any one of these, the technical information, it's not going to tell the support team member who's reading it, did you have audio problems or did your device not ring? There's not an easy way for us to know. Right, feature codes, I've talked about a couple of these. These are ways for your VoIP phone users to access Dash features directly from their VoIP phone. This information is also a page on our support pages. There's also a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet on our support pages. And that has the feature codes, but also the little contextual help here to know how to properly use it. All right, so that's the dashboard. Next up, we have blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. Right? They're not allowed to call you. You would click Edit Blacklists. If you don't have a list, you would click on Add. Otherwise, you can click on an existing list. Right? You need to give a name, and then you choose, are you blocking anonymous calls or not? Right? If you turn this on, that means calls that don't have a valid inbound caller ID are blocked. They get a busy tone. Right? If you leave it off, they can come through. Beyond that, you click on Add Number. You put +1 area code and phone number. No spaces, dashes, or parentheses. Right? Just +1 area code and number. Keep clicking Add until you're done. And then once you're done, you click Save. Then you click on Back to Settings. And then you make sure your list is over here under Selected. And then you click Update. So now the phone numbers that are on these two lists are blocked from reaching my system. No matter what phone number on my account they call, whether they're one of my name numbers, a number on a user or group, etc., they get busy tone. Faxes, this goes to your fax manager. You can get to any fax box on your account because you're an admin, right? The inbound faxes, you can see the results here. Nothing on my main. If we go to outbound faxes, you see I have a failure here. I can see the date and the time, phone numbers involved. And if I click on the little details icon, it might tell me more, but typically we just see the status has failed. And I don't know if there's going to be anything else. Yeah, nothing else to tell me what's going on. Sometimes there's things like user busy, right? The phone number you were trying to dial is busy, etc. The system automatically tries a fax 3 times, right? So it can take a while before you get a notification that a fax went through. The email to fax log show you, oh, hold on. So the outbound fax page, right? This means we had a problem communicating with the other phone number. Whether that's because the phone number was busy, or it could have connected, but then there could have been a problem with the transmission after that, right? Like someone picked up the handset on the fax machine and then ended the call. before the fax is complete, that sort of thing. Now, the email to fax log, this means the system had a problem processing the document or the request that came in. So we never actually tried the other fax number. Now, at the date and the time, etc. Little eyeball icon here to the far right, that can give you some the information here under errors. In this case, no valid attachment. Now, that could be no attachment was included with the email. That could be they had the wrong document type. Right, others, I think this one here. Right, you see here, this is the system had a problem processing the document itself. It's a correct format, PDF, but there was a problem with the file. Sometimes resaving the file can work. Sometimes you might need to export it or download it as a PDF. It's just going to vary. You want to make sure that the PDF or TIFF file you're sending is under 7 megabytes. Even then, smaller is better, generally speaking. The more pages you have, the more chances you have for failure as well. Number manager, that just takes you back to your spare number page. Reports takes you to advanced reporting. Would open up a new tab. The advanced reports allows you to create reports, your own custom reports. It doesn't show up here, unfortunately. However, under our YouTube channel, under videos, do a search for advanced reporting demo, and that will show you some of the things that the reporting can do. And then if you're interested, you would actually need to talk to our account services team, accountservices@virtualpbx.com. Voicemails, this takes you to your voicemail manager. This allows you to get to any voicemail box on the account. So you can see the voicemails on a user, right? You could listen to it, you can download it. As an admin, when you click on the box here, you can move a voicemail to a specific voicemail box, as well as change its status. SMS registration is new. That's if you want to make use of texting, right? The virtual text. Basically, you would want to read through this and then start the registration process. And then you can see the status. Call center, this is the ACD queues, right? So that's an upgrade feature off an existing account. I don't think it, let me check if it works. It doesn't typically, yeah. Now, this opens up a new tab. It uses your dash login information to get into the page. For more on this, you actually need to go to our YouTube channel as well. Under videos, look for the ACD Queues Pro demo. But basically for queues, once you create a queue, you've got options in terms of routing, like round robin, which equalizes out over time, like least calls, most idle, etc. You assign your staff members, so then they would have a call center link. They would select their default queue device, and then they would also, they would log into the queue, right? Begin their session, select their default queue device, and then they can take calls in the queues that they're assigned to. In the queues, right, their staff members can change their status to away, like when they go to lunch, right? And that way they're not being offered calls. Likewise, when a call comes into a queue and a staff member is on a queue call, right, the system knows, so it doesn't even try to offer to it. It skips them and goes to the next available person. Let's go to dynamic caller ID. This allows you to create rules that changes the outbound call ID for your VoIP phones, right? The two easy examples here is you give it a name, right? So 408 area code. I select this 408 phone number, which happens to be my main number, so it's not the greatest example. But then you give it the rule. In this case, I'm saying, hey, whenever my staff members dial a 408 phone number, the system will automatically change the outbound call ID on their VoIP phones to match this 408 phone number that I selected, right? Now that pull down from the phone numbers, these are numbers on your account. Now the other option here is like for LA, all right? So LA area code, I created a feature code. So now in this case, my staff members, they need to start their phone, when they make a phone call, start by hitting *550, area code and phone number, right? Click send. So now when they make that outbound call, if they start with the *550, this system will automatically make their outbound caller ID this 323 phone number. Right, just to make it look like a local call to whoever they're calling. Monitor is another plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of your other staff members and what they're doing, right? So if they're on a call, right, they'd be in a blue box showing you that they're on a call. You can sort by devices. You can see who's available and who's busy. Over here, all active inbound calls, there'd be a little box for each call. You can see who they're speaking to among your staff. For parked calls, if there's a parked call, right, their parking spot number would also be showing up here, so it makes it easier to pick up that parked call. Recording Manager, this opens up a new tab. It takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, which uses your Dash login to log in. That's where you would view your recordings, right? You can play them back, you can download them, delete them, etc. If you had the AWS integration enabled, this would instead take you to your AWS page where you could play them back and sort them, etc. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. This is actually programming. It lets you link your Dash account to other software. The main example we use is Zapier. In fact, on our YouTube channel, you can look for the video, Introduction to Zapier webinar. But this is, as it says, plan-specific feature. You'd actually want to talk to our sales team, as they're the ones with more information on this. If you click on New Webhook, that's how you create the hook on the Dash side. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we have done in terms of linking Dash to other software. Yeah, between developer.virtualpbx.com and the YouTube video, those are probably your best to get an idea of what is possible with the webhooks. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Each user has their own user portal, right? It defaults that user to their own individual voicemail tab, so that way they can check their messages, right? They can see the date, the time, the duration, they can play it back, they can download it, and then they can change the status. Call history, they can view their call history. Again, they can go back up to a year and see the calls that came in and out. The fax tab only works for users that have their own fax box. The contact list shows everything within your Dash account, right? So other users, their extension numbers, queues, groups, etc. Conference tab. Over here to the right is where your staff member would adjust their PIN numbers, both for themselves and for the people who join their conference. Here's the option to have people join muted or deafened, and then play entry and exit tones. When they're in a conference, up here on the plus sign, you can invite other Dash users to the conference. You can lock a conference so other people cannot join, mute everybody, unmute everybody, end the conference call. Also, while you're in a conference, each moderator and participant has their own little box, which means you can mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person. And then we have the settings and devices tab. Right here is where your users can enable call forwarding on their own. Right? They just put a check mark here, put +1 area code and phone number, and click save. Likewise, uncheck it, and then click save, and call forwarding is off. And that is everything. I haven't seen any questions here, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. I thank you for your time today. We'll be back here next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific.